You do here. All right. Parshish Sefer Shmos. Elu Shmos Bnei Yisrael. These are the names of the Jewish people that go down to Egypt. Now he asks a question here in the beginning, which he's only going to get to this answer after 3 or 4 pages, and we're not going to get to the answer. So let's just skip over this question here, and we'll go to the point. Okay, the main question that what he asks essentially is, it says in Parshas Yigash, it says, what does it say in this week's Parsha? Elu Shmos Bnei Yisrael Haboim Mitzrayim. These are the names of the Jews that went down to Mitzrayim. Bnei Yisrael, right? The sons of Yisrael coming down to Israel. The sons of Israel that came down to Egypt. Bnei Yisrael. And he lists them. Yaakov, Ish Ubeito Bo. What does it mean, Yaakov? Yaakov is Yisrael. What do you mean he's not the son of Yisrael? That's the question he's going to ask. And it says in Parshas Vayigash, it says the same thing. Elu b'nei Shmos b'nei Yisrael, Aboim Mitzrayim, Yaakov ubanov. It says the same thing. The sons of Israel coming to Egypt, Yaakov and his sons. Right. This whole book starts the whole story of the exile of Jews in Egypt and the miraculous going out of Egypt and receiving the Torah. And that's the main point of this week's. And then the laws that they received in the Torah, building the Mishkan, which was one of the laws in the Torah, building the. Okay, first of all, it says here, these are the names of the sons of Israel, sons of Yaakov that come into Egypt. And it says Yaakov is one of them. And in Parshas Vayigash, remember just a few weeks ago, it says the same thing. These are the names of the Jews, of Bnei Yisrael, coming into Egypt. Yaakov Abana says again the same thing. Yaakov was what? Not one of the Bnei Yisrael. He was not one of the sons of, he himself was Yisrael. That's also, we have to understand, why does it say twice? Why does it say the same exact sentence twice? These are the names of the Jews coming into it. We know it. Every word of the Torah is very exact. It says the same thing. These are the names of the sons of Israel. And one of the sons of Israel is Yaakov. Tzarech Lav, we have to understand, why is it in twice the same story told of the Jews coming into Egypt and what their names are, we know. Okay, that's going to be the main question. And like I say, it's only going to be answered in several pages. The Inyanu, like this. The Inye, it says, Yorod Yoradnu. It says in the Parshas Miketz, it says that there's an announcement given that you are going to go down to Egypt. Yerida Acha Yerida, a descent after descent. The Jews are going to go into Egypt, and there's going to be all the other exiles afterwards. V'chein b'yetziat Mitzrayim, also it says when the Jews go out of Egypt, the goalo, and the redemption. It says Anochi elcha gam alo, I will take you up. Allah na'aleh, let us go up. Haynu Beisalios 2 times. Also, it says pakadati. We learned that in last week's book. This is Ilay Achar Ilay. Okay, so now let's just remember a very basic thing, and this is very relevant to our lives, day-to-day lives. And one of the essence of Judaism is going out of Egypt. We mentioned going out of Egypt in our prayers too many times almost to count. Zecher L'Yetzias Mitzrayim, going out of Mitzrayim, took us out of Egypt, especially in the prayer in the evening prayer, it took us out of Egypt. And how God is taking us out of Egypt, it's a major, it's the birth of the Jewish people. The Jewish people were born by going out of Egypt. It's never happened before that the Jews went out of Egypt, and it never happened afterwards. The whole entire nation was prisoner. A whole entire nation, they were all slaves, abject slaves. Right? There was nobody outside. Let's say by the blacks, right? So there's some blacks were left back in Egypt, in Africa. Right? Not all of the black people were taken prisoner. Here, all of the Jews, there wasn't one exception. All of the Jews were all slaves. How did that happen? Because a very few number of Jews, there were only 70 that came out into Egypt with Yaakov in the time of the famine. And then they just stayed there. And they were tricked to remain, and it was very good, and suddenly it got terrible. And that's the way it was for 210 years they stayed in Egypt. Until all of them, miraculously, in one day, all got out. Never been such a thing like that, never been such an exile like that, and never been such a redemption going out of it. This is the basis of the Jewish people. This is the essence and the basis of Jewish people. That's the first of the 10 commandments. I am God that took you out of Egypt. In other words, God, the fourth of the 10 commandments is God creates the world, right? He created the world. But the biggest miracle of all is that one whole entire nation God picked from all of the other nations, and he took us all out of Egypt. And this is a very essential basis of Judaism, right? People really forget about this. And the whole possibility that there can be non-religious Jews or Reformed Jews or conservative Jews basically comes from forgetting this very important principle. And it's really not that hard to forget because, first of all, it happened 3,300 something years ago. And since then, there have been so many troubles and problems and difficulties that it's, very, very improbable that it's going to happen again. And we're saying that it will happen again. It will happen. We'll talk about that. But let's say it doesn't happen again. Just the idea that God gets involved in the world. It's a totally different type of a God than is worshipped by any other religion. God that creates the world and gets involved. Okay. So it says, I am God that took you out of Egypt. This is I will bring you up out of Egypt. Anochi elcha gamalo. I will take you out. Hainu beis aliyos, 2 times. The Jews will go out of Egypt twice. El ilui acharilui, not just twice, but once after the other. Ube'emes, and really, b'yetziat Mitzrayim, going out of Egypt, lo nitalu, we only went up only once. Like it says, Elcha etchem me'ani Mitzrayim. I will take you, bring you up out of the poverty and the suffering of Egypt. El eretz zvat chalav v'davash, to the promised land. That's what God promises Moshe here. So what does it mean? You will go out. It says there's going to be at least 2, and really the Jews only went out once. Achi Eliyazu, this Hashanis is Romezes, it hints at Geula Tida, the future redemption. Liot b'meirav yamenu, that will be quickly. So here we have 2 very basic principles of Judaism. Number 1, that God took us out of Egypt. God is not just this amorphous, God removed from the world the spiritual power that you can take it or leave it. He believes in, you can believe in him or not. Even if you leave it, even if you don't, it doesn't make any difference. God still cares for us, and he did take us all out of Egypt, Jews that had no hope of getting out of Egypt. Certainly that wasn't their plan. They never thought it was going to happen. And all of a sudden comes along Moshe and he takes them all out of Egypt. Says the Rebbe, that's a pretty amazing thing. I mean, that's who we Jews are believing in, that there's a God that really makes major changes in the world, and he does it for the Jews, and he determines what is good and what is bad. I mean, who's to say that the Egyptians were the bad guys? Maybe the Jews, who says the Egyptians were the bad guys? Maybe the Jews are the bad guys. right? Like they do nowadays in everything that happens in Israel, the Jews, they're the fault. Even the Jews blame themselves. And so who says that God, all of a sudden, God himself, the creator, there could be no denying. God took them all out of Egypt. Amazing miracles. And he gave them bread from heaven, and he gave them water from a rock, and he surrounded them with clouds, and he drowned all their enemies, and he took them to Mount Sinai, and he gave them this is the essence of Judaism. You think it helped? Didn't help at all. 40 days after they got the Torah, they all worshiped the golden calf. That's another essence of Judaism. And on that, that you don't have to read about in a book. That's the Jewish people. And that's the way God created us. Nevertheless, as the Rebbe, that's a very, very major thing, remembering going out of Egypt. But even more major is knowing and hoping and praying and doing everything possible to make it happen again. And that's one of the things of Moshiach. Moshiach, one of the main jobs, tasks of Moshiach is to bring Moshiach. Moshiach is going to come, like the Rambam says, in Kof Kol Ben Israel, force all the Jews, right, by convincing them. How are you going to force them? You can't force them more than God forced them back then. See, it doesn't work. Right, back then they went out of Egypt, as God took them out of Egypt and he fed them and he took care of them, and it didn't work. So this type of forcing is going to have to be some sort of convincing, because God doesn't want zombies, and he doesn't want he wants people to think for themselves, and that they're free thinkers, and the freest thought that you could possibly have is, hey, I want to serve the creator of the universe. And that's what's going to bring the future redemption. When Mashiach comes, then we're really going to start to serve God. Remember, that's the last mimer we learned. Remember? Do you remember that? Mashiach coming, then we're really going to start to work. The time is going to be freedom, is the raising of the dead. That's not in our hands. Okay, what type of work do we have to do? Now, each Rebbe of Chabad is the Mashiach of his generation. The Rebbe said it a lot of times, and you don't have to have the Rebbe saying here, you can see it so. Just read what the Mashiach is supposed to do. Read the Rambam, what they're supposed to do. Look around in Israel, all the Jewish people, see, is there anybody even in that direction that's trying to force all the Jews to return to Judaism and spread the knowledge of God over the whole world and talk about the knowledge of God? What is the knowledge of God? All the books of Hasidus are talking about knowing God, how complicated it is and how simple it is. So it says that the essence of Judaism is these two things: remembering going out of Egypt and hoping and waiting impatiently. The Rambam says you have to wait for his coming. And if you don't, it says you're denying all of Judaism, says the Rambam. That it's going to happen again. It is going to happen again. When is it going to happen again? I hope there's, I don't know what to tell you. It's supposed to have happened a long time ago. The Rebbe said he doesn't understand what's going on. The Rebbe said, we've done everything. But nevertheless, it is happening, and it's going to happen, and for sure, no doubt about it, the Lubavitcher Rebbe is the Mashiach, and he's got all the qualifications of Mashiach. And if you have a lot of questions on that, that's wonderful. You should have as many questions as possible. But at least it shows that at least we're thinking in the right direction. And as many questions as you have, I think I have more questions. But nevertheless, it's supposed to happen any second. We'll see at the end of this week's parsha that Moshe asks God, Lama hareyosa lama zeh, why are you torturing the Jewish people? What are you doing? Lama hareyosa, what did they do? They didn't do anything. They were just put into prisons and made prisoners in Egypt. They didn't do anything. They were born in Egypt. They didn't do anything wrong. Why should they suffer? Good question. That's my question too, and that's the Rebbe's question. Nevertheless, we have to do everything we can to get out. Sitting and crying and forgetting and being bitter and things like that. You can try it. I mean, I've tried it. It doesn't work. So we have to do something positive. And here it is. The Rebbe is telling us what to do positive. Hine, Kasiv, it is written, and the prophet Micha, just like the days when you left Egypt, I will show you miracles. I'm going to take you out of Egypt again. Now, Micha was one of the prophets in like the first temple, the end of the first temple. And God said, you're going to go out of Egypt. I'm going to show you tremendous miracles. This is over 500 years ago. Shemaki Shakatuv, that the Torah compares the prophet Geula Acharona, the last redemption, and there's the redemption that's before us, the Yetzias Mitzrayim, to go out of Egypt. I mean, can you imagine it? All of the Jews in the world will worship Hashem. The whole world will worship Hashem. The whole world will come to realize there's a creator that's creating them. That's not very religious. I mean, God is creating us, the street, the sun, the moon. That's not religion, that God is creating dogs and cats, flowers, and God's creating everything. But the main thing of Moshiach is going to teach us how to serve, how to repay God. That's the main thing what God wants. He wants to give us the biggest gift of all, responsibility. And the future redemption is going to happen. The whole entire world is going to go out of their selfishness, go out of worry and fear and hate, go out of it, the whole world. But first of all, the Jews. The Jews are God's people. We're the ones that are supposed to advertise God in the world. But who and is Kashemokal Ikar Tachlit Makuvan, because the whole entire reason why Kal Ikar Tachlit Makuvan, the whole entire reason, intention, Begalit Mitzrayim, why God put us in Egypt in the first place, Vashibud, and the servitude, Reish Dalad Vav Shana, Radu, so Radu Shama, go down 210 years, Haya was Bichdei, in order to Zechut LeKabbalat Torah, in order to receive the Torah. Like it says in Parshas Et Chanan, Panim b'panim diber Hashem. It says that God spoke face to face with you. At Mount Sinai, everybody saw God. The Jews saw God. They heard God. The sounds were visible. The sounds were visible. The sight, they could hear. What does it mean? They could see what usually you could only understand. And they could understand things which are beyond understanding. They could see and hear. Panim b'panim, that was at Mount Sinai. They could see the Creator. That's what it was in the Holy Temple, in the Holy of Holies. Everyone at Mount Sinai felt that they were being created by God, and everyone felt that they were being created for a purpose. And that's the 10 Commandments. And all the commandments that came afterwards when Moshe came to Mount Sinai. 3 months later, what was it? 4 months later. Because he went up, he broke the first tablets. He went, like it says, this will be the sign. God says, speaks to Moshe, the burning bush. When you go out of Egypt, you will serve God on this mountain. God appears to Moshe in the burning bush, right? We'll see. We'll learn about this in a couple of days. God appears to Moshe in the burning bush, and he says to him, Moshe, you're going to take the Jews out of Egypt. And Moshe said, oh, God, listen, no way, send somebody else. I can't, I'm not going to stand in front of Paro and tell him to, now you got to tell them, Paro, let the Jews go. And this is going to be your sign. You're going to serve me on this mountain, where the burning bush was, that was on Mount Sinai. You're going to serve God, me on this mountain. And Rashi says it means two things, but one of them is in the merit of receiving the Torah, you are going to merit that you're going to serve me on this mountain and receive the Torah. In that merit, you're going to go out of Egypt. That was the 210 years the Jews were suffering in Egypt in order to get to the big redemption, going out of Egypt. Well, there's a bigger redemption. In order to prepare for that, we have a bigger preparation. Similarly, this whole lengthy galut that we've got now, let's say it's 2,000 years, right, since the second temple was destroyed. But the fact is that even before that, the Jews had not really come to the true awareness of God. That's why the first temple was destroyed. That's why the second temple was destroyed. There'll be the third temple. But that's only going to come after another long exile. V'ukadei in his own order, if 210 years was the preparation necessary to receive the first redemption, and the first redemption was incredible. Right? It's hard to believe. I don't know. I personally don't think that there is any history book in the whole world that really gives any credit or describes in any way what happened when the Jews left Egypt. It's the most amazing historical event that there ever was in the history of the world. Never been anything like it, even vaguely. Right? They talk about Attila the Hun, and they talk about who knows what, the Charlemagne, and the 10 years war, the 50 years war, and the this and the that, right? They don't talk about the biggest, most amazing, newsworthy, already you talk about the, what is it, fake news. The most newsworthy thing that ever happened is the Jews going out of Egypt, right? The Jews going, I'm incredible. Like now in Israel, you deny the Holocaust, you're the biggest Russia in the world, you have mamish Nazi, deny the Holocaust, but the Israelis, they deny the going out of Egypt, they deny there was such a thing as the Exodus and receiving the Torah. That's the whole basis of Judaism. The most amazing event that ever happened in the whole history of the world, and the Israelis, the Jews themselves deny it. Says the Rebbe, this is the most amazing event that ever happened. Not only that it's the most amazing that ever happened, it's the most amazing event that anybody even claimed happened. There's no other religion that even claims to be based on such a thing like this. This came after 210 years of hard labor. That was the necessary preparation. Well, if so, think what the future redemption is going to be, right? The future redemption is going to be after the Jews left Egypt and they received the Torah, they also denied it. They also denied it. God said, don't worship idols. 40 days later, they worshiped the golden calf. And the future redemption is not going to be that way. God is not just going to take the Jews out of Egypt, he's going to take the Egypt out of the Jews. The Jews are going to only want holiness. They're going to only want the truth. But in order to get this, we had to have a big preparation. And the preparation is the exile that we've been in order to Gilui, to reveal Penimiut Torah, the inside Torah, which that's another name for Chasidut Chabad, Penimiut Torah, Chasidut in general, but especially Chabad. And also, Penimiut Torah means that it goes into your inside. It's not just something that was given by God to us, from God. It's a thing that would be given inside of us, and we're going to give it to God. We're going to go to Hashem. Is that the God is always the giver, and we're just complying, right? It'll be we'll be the active. Moshiach is going to come and activate everybody, but unfortunately, it took, let's say, 2,000 years of exile. Penimius Torah, to reveal the inside of the Torah, Shiyah, that will be Latid Lavo in the future. If you look in Shir Hashirim, the book of King Solomon, it says in the beginning that he will kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. And that's talking about the inside of the Torah. Because the whole book of Shir Hashirim, Song of Songs, is a love song between God and the Jews, especially in Mount Sinai. When we read Kiba Matan Torah, when God gave us the Torah, Kabbalah the Torah, Niglit, that was the revealed Torah. Aval Panimiyut, but the inside, Tamia Torah, the reasons, the inside of the Torah, which that is Hasidut, is trying to teach us, will be Gilui, revealed, Shalem, La'atid Lavo, in the future. This will really come inside of us. Al Zen Ne'amar, and this it says, Eren Niflot. That's what it means when it says, when you go, this like when you went out of Egypt, I will show you miracles. That's the miracles that I will show you. The miracles that I will show you is this inside Torah that will change us from the inside. Kamosh ayin ba'ayin yiru. And it's not that we will see miracles, we will be miracles. Eye to eye, we will see God personally, like it was in Mount Sinai, but permanently. Now, what does this mean to see God? What does it mean to see God? You're going to see a big angel or a big something form in the sky, or the what exactly it means? I don't. It's not an explainable thing. But just like say very basically, the most basic aspect of God is that He creates us. So let's say that you'll feel and see that you are being created, that you're important. You'll feel and see that there's a creator that's a bigger reality than what you think or what people think about you or whatever it is. You're doing a commandment that something infinite happens. In this world, we don't know what means infinite. Then we'll feel what it infinite. Similarly, being in a shibud, also the same thing with the exile that we're in now. It's all a preparation for this big revelation that's going to be in the future. This big miracle that Jews are going to change. Like it says, it says they will make their lives bitter with hard work. It says that the Egyptians made the Jews work hard with chomer, with cement, and with bricks. And all the work in the field. They made them work in the field. They had to gather up grasses, whatever they had. They were the slaves. The Jews were the animals. They were the oxes and the things that did the plowing and did the working, and they had to build these big pyramids. Who know what they built? Sphinxes, whatever they built. Big cities. It says Pitom and Ramses. Well, that refers to not just what was back then. It's a very basic principle of Hasidut, that everything that's in the Torah is inside of us, and it's happening right now. So that the Jews had to work hard in Chomer u'Bilvanim and in the field back then in order to merit the revelation of the external Torah, as that's what we have to do now. We have to work in this Chomer u'Bilvanim in cement and bricks and the work in the field in order to get to the inside of the Torah. And this refers Gam also al Zaman Acharon, to the last times like now. Okay, how? Right, so this is the first sentence in the book of Shemot, right? Right in the book of Shemot. Not the first sentence, the first paragraph. It says by the Egyptians that Yosef died and all of his brothers died, and all of a sudden the Jews, v'yomoreru et chayehem, they made the life of the Jews bitter. Et chayim, they made it bitter. What is bitter? The Torah. The Torah is our life. The Torah now is bitter. What do you mean is bitter? You have to do hard work in the Torah. The kushya, this is questions. You have to ask questions about the Torah. You have to learn the Torah. The Torah is filled with questions. The Torah demands that you ask questions. It requests, it begs that you ask questions. The Torah. You should learn Torah and try to understand. You have to understand. In order to understand, you have to have questions. That could be one of the big problems now, is that there's no questions. People have no questions, right? Sometimes people ask me, how is it that the rabbis say that? How could it be that the rabbis do this? No, you're not asking a question. You're selling it in. If the Torah is true, how can the rabbis make up new laws? Why is it that there's such things as a mamzer? Why is it the sacrifices? It's not. Why is it that? No, but you're not asking a question. You're saying that because I don't understand, therefore, I'm not going to do Judaism. No, ask a question. They're good questions, right? There has to be questions, but questions make you feel uncomfortable. If you got the answers, then you're not uncomfortable, right? That the whole Torah is based on questions. That's why the night of Passover starts with the 4 questions. If you haven't got any questions, it's not good. Questions mean that you're lacking something, and that you believe that maybe the Torah has what you're lacking. Torah, that's avoda kasha. You have to work in avoda kasha. What is it? The kusha. These are questions in the Aramaic. Bechomer. What's bechomer? That's his kol v'chomer. Kol v'chomer is one of the principles that the Torah is learned by. Ubakol avoda b'sadeh. This is the breita. Okay, now the whole idea of questions in the Torah, this is the oral Torah, explains. If you read the written Torah, right, the written Torah, then you make up whatever you want. If there's no oral Torah, if there's no Mishnah and Gemara and Halacha and Midrash, right, those come for inquisitive people. People that are not inquisitive, you read the Torah and you just make up whatever you want to. There's no questions. Just do what you want. Take it or leave it. Somebody comes up with a better answer. Well, okay, maybe that. But we're going to learn of the tremendous holiness and importance of the oral Torah. The oral Torah. That's the essence of Judaism. Questions, working, understanding. And this, says the Rebbe, this is what's going to take us out of the exile. This is the hard work we have to do in order to merit to the inside of the Torah. It says Chomer, B'chol avodah b'sadeh, right? U'bilevanim. What is the levanim? This says the b'sadeh. That's the brisa. The word brisa means outside. Bar means breita. Breitas are laws made by the Tanaim that weren't put into the order of the Mishnahs with Rabbi Yehuda. We'll talk about that later. But that's part of the oral Torah. That's the hard work that we have to do. Ubilevanim, and in bricks, da libun hilchata. This is clarifying laws. Libun means to make white, to clarify the laws. She'ein biyadenu halacha barura, that nowadays we do not have clear laws, v'din barur, or clear statutes. Ki kol dini Torah, because all the laws of the Torah, b'machloket shenuya, are all in arguments. Right? You learn the Gemara, all arguments. The whole thing is all arguments. We have that. So very, 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 very genius in order to understand what the final conclusion is of the Gemara. That's Judaism. Halu machshirim. Some people say it's kosher, matarim. Some people say it's puzzle. Some people it's forbidden. Beit Shammai says like this. Beit Hillel says like this. Right? The Rabbi Yochanan says like this, and Reish Lakish says like this. Right? Then the Hillel says, and Shammai, and Rabbi Akiva. Kamo she'al yadei shibud Mitzrayim, just like when the Jews were in Egypt, the chomer lovenim, and they had to work hard with cement and with bricks. Zachal u'matan Torah, they merited to the revealed Torah. Also, the same thing now. We have to work in bricks and cement of a different. The bricks are what's called libun hilchasa, levenim. Libun hilchasa. We have to clarify the laws in our time. Yizku legilut penimis Torah. Then, by means of doing this, we will merit to the inside of the Torah in the future. Arenani flowed, because we will see miracles. And what is this seeing? The miracles that we will feel in ourselves, that we are miracles. And we'll feel the miraculousness of Hashem that's creating us, and even more miraculous, every word of the Torah. Okay, in order to understand, what does this mean that we have to libun hilchasa? What does it mean that we have to make clear the laws? And also the idea of all of the work we do in the field. We said this is the learning the Talmud. Right? Clarifying the laws and learning the Talmud. How it is. See, how do we do this over here? 1 second. How it is. I didn't. You did. I get it. How it is. Al Yedezeh, that by means of this, by means of learning Torah and working hard at the Torah and trying to understand the Torah, racking your brains and understand the Torah, will be the revelation in the future that we are so awaiting. In other words, God will take us out of Egypt, but just like going out of Egypt back then, they did things which apparently had no connection to God revealing himself. They worked in the field and they made bricks and they made this. Similarly now, by learning Torah, we will have this amazing miraculous revelation. It's going to be in the future, which is even greater than going out of Egypt. And it's by things that seemingly don't really have that much of a connection to these big, amazing revelations of godliness. Okay, first of all, you have to understand that when you learn the Torah, we're learning God's Torah. When I understand an idea of Torah, it's God's intellect that's in my mind. And even if this is not an idea that says that God says, like in the Bible, says that Rabbi Akiva said it, or Reish Lakish said it, or the Rabbi Yochanan said it, or someone else said it, right? Abaya or Rabbah, that they said the law. Nevertheless, these people were speaking the word of God. And that's what we're going to, this is a very difficult thing. All the enemies of Judaism from the beginning have always struck at the oral Torah. The oral Torah, that was the enemy of that was the big obstacle to the enemies of Judaism. You want to knock down Judaism? First thing is the oral Torah. And it's just people, it's not a big thing, it's outdated, and who says they're right, maybe we're right. Okay, then of course there was always Hammans and people like that just hated the body of the Jews, which that's the main thing of the Jews. But generally speaking, that's okay. That's the way that we're going to merit to the true redemption, is by learning the Gemara and making the laws clear. What is the connection? Yesh Laktim, first of all, we have to understand the explanation, something about God. We call God in the prayers, we say about God, we say Melech Meshubach Umfuar Ad Shemo HaGadol. We say about God that he is a king, that he is praiseworthy and glorious forever and ever, his great name. Okay, what does this mean? There's a lot of praises of God. Let's discuss this praise. Then we can understand a little bit about the God that's giving us the Torah, even the oral Torah, and the God that's going to reveal to himself to us, inside of us, and that we are serving now, and we're going to be serving even with more enthusiasm when Moshiach comes. So let's talk about God. Melech, he's a king, Meshubach Hamfoar, that he is praiseworthy and glorious, Ad forever and ever, Shemo HaGadol, his great name. Okay, ready? Here we go. Ki, because Hine, Tachlit, you read it in the Neshama, the whole purpose why God puts the soul Olam Hazeh into this world. You read it, Tzorech Aliyah, it's because it's a descent which is for the sake of an elevation. Now, the soul, before it came into this world, it was in heaven, the highest levels of heaven, basking in the oneness of God, under the throne of God. And God puts the soul into the world to get an elevation. Now, this makes no sense, because the soul, before it came into the world, was elevated. It was up in heaven. It was like, and putting the soul into the world is a tremendous, tremendous descent that we can't imagine. There's no way of imagining the pain and the confusion that the soul has by being put into this world. When the soul is in heaven, it just senses God. It senses the Creator. It senses the inside of the Torah. It senses all these things. When it's in the world, what does it sense? It wants to eat. It goes to the bathroom. It's screaming. It's crying. It's cold. It's hot, right? The soul, it's alone. It's afraid. Why does God do it? Because he wants an elevation. Is it worth it? We'll see. The elevation is kedei, in order lechazot b'noam Hashem, to gaze in the pleasantness of God, ba'olam haba, in the world to come. Ooh, and the Gan Eden. Let's talk about this pleasure you're going to get. Now remember, the soul was there before. The Gan Eden is what's called the upper Gan Eden, the upper heaven, Gan Eden Atachton, and there's the lower heaven. Shehu, Asagas, and Hashamas. This is the understanding, the grasping, the awareness, the consciousness of the souls, that they're nani maziv shechina, that they get pleasure from the ray of God's presence. Shu tainug nifla, which is an incredible pleasure, ad ein kates, where there's no end, v'tachlit, or limit, beli gavul, unlimited pleasure. How much pleasure can a person get in this world, right? How many drugs can you take? How many presidential elections can you win? how many heavyweight champion of the world boxing matches coming, how much money is there, how much, very limited. A person is very limited, right? You get pleasure. Eventually you can't have 24/7 your whole life unless you want to live only just one day. Hine b'sforim, but then you go to heaven, infinite pleasure. Infinite pleasure. There's no body, you don't go to sleep, you don't get tired. Infinite pleasure. And that's pleasure in God. So God is infinite. There's infinite levels of pleasure in Sforim, in the books, Loni's card. That's what you get by being the soul coming into this world. Right now, remember again, the soul was there before it came to the world. 1 second, we'll get to this. Hine b'sforim, in the books, Loni's car, there's only mentioned going to heaven. There's only mentioned 2 levels of heaven. Gan Eden Elyon and Gan Eden Tachton, the lower heaven and the upper heaven. But really, yesh kamam bechinos, there's many levels of Gan Eden. But tainugim, and pleasure at ein kates, without any end. It says in books that 1 instant of pleasure in the world to come is 70 times greater than all of the pleasure you could possibly have in this world your whole life. All the pleasures. But that's what it means. That's what it means, that they're praised and forever. Like the rabbis say, tzaddikim ein lehem menucha, like it says that the tzaddikim haven't got any rest ba'olam haba, in the world to come. Like it says, yilchu michal ochel, they go from one level to the other, from strength to strength. The Noam Hashem, this is what it means that we're in this world in order to merit to this pleasure of the world to come. This pleasure, this is Gilui Shmo Gadol. This is what's called Shmo Gadol, God's great name. Asher Kadai, that it is worthwhile. Call Yasuri Gehenna, all of the pains of hell. It says that 1 instant of pain in hell is like 70 years of the pain of Job. Sitting in a dentist's chair without any anesthesia for 70 years straight, having all your teeth drilled simultaneously, 70 years. Just to think about it, it says it's worth it just to have 1 minute in heaven, in order to get this pleasure of God. Like it says, mutav l'dayani, like it says it's worthwhile that he should be judged, and etc. It says over there that there's a terrible story. It says that there was once a very talented, great, you could even say holy Jew, and his name was Elisha ben Abua. And Elisha ben Abua, he was one of the compatriots of Rabbi Akiva, and they went into heaven together, and etc. And he said that he went to heaven, and he decided there's 2 gods, whatever. Anyway, he left Judaism, and he became a big opposer of Judaism, religious Judaism. That's a painful story. Anyway, when he died, so it says that he came to one of his pupils, I think it was Rabbi Meir, and he said, listen, I can't go up to heaven, I can't go down to hell. I learned so much Torah that they won't put me down in hell, but I did so many sins that they won't put me in heaven. What should I do? So he said, I'll pray for you that you go to hell. So he went to hell, and he said, what? Go to hell? It's a terrible pain. He said, it's worthwhile to be judged in hell, to suffer the pains of hell for 70 years just to get 1 moment of the world to come. It's such tremendous pleasure. Okay, I don't think I understand that, but nevertheless, it says that it is. So that's what it is. That's what you get by coming into this world and suffering into the world. So hell purifies a person to go to heaven. Homer Razal, but Rabbi said that Abraham was given a choice. And for his children, you want to get this tremendous pleasure? Okay, there's 2 ways to do it. Either by means of galut, by means of exile, or the pains of hell. And Abraham chose exile. And that's why we're in this exile now. This is going to refine us in order to get this level of pleasure we're going to talk about. And God willing, we'll talk about this a little bit more tomorrow. People came a little late. Let's do this paragraph. Hine, behold. Ian, what is this idea of hell? Hell is a spiritual level which is there kadei litzaref neshama, in order to refine the soul michola asara, from the stains of selfishness, evil, which are inside of him. Like mitzaref lekesef, like a person, he refines silver. What happens when you find silver? You put it into this hot thing, and the psolos fasigim nisrafim tocha akor, and the the waste and the dregs, they go away in the pot, the nishar kesef, and it ends up that there's silver that's pure. Kach, similarly, without any dregs or any dirt. Kach, and similarly, in order that the soul will be able to receive this pleasure of heaven, of Gan Eden, of the revelation of God, it has to first of all become purified in the fire of hell in order to separate the bad from the good, because bad cannot be with God. But nevertheless, Abraham Bachar Boshivud Goliath. Nevertheless, Abraham said, in order for the Jews to receive heaven, in order for the Jews to receive this tremendous revelation, he said it's better that they should get exile. This is the refining of the soul, like it says, Mikura Barzel Mimitzrayim. It says that Egypt was the crucible of refinement. But Galut Edom Nikra is called also Kur Oni. So all these the Galut, the exile of Edom, that's what we're in now. This last 2,000 years, it's also called a crucible. What is a pot? A refining pot. So Abraham decided that it would be better, for the Jews to have exile for thousands of years than to go to hell. What does this mean? We're going to find out tomorrow with God's help. Be with us. Now let's learn a sikha of the Rebbe about going out of Egypt. Let's just see if I can get it. There it is. Okay.